are you people?
This year, the Pokémon TCG has boomed in popularity in another ebb and flow of time's constant passage. Ugh. This is thanks to the release of some highly anticipated expansions that feature fan favourites and generations worth of nostalgia. But I've seen a bit of confusion from some returning fans because, well, why don't you recognise some of these faces? What's that? Is that a Squishmallow? Oh, thank God, at least there's Snorlax. Pokémon TCG, Scarlet and Violet, Journeys Together is an expansion that features 4 returning trainers and their Pokémon from the newer generations, N, Lillie, Hop, and Iono. So for those who aren't familiar with them or want to understand why they were chosen for the first return of trainers' Pokémon cards, here's a rundown to share their in-game lore. I won't be covering the anime or manga or any other interpretations of these characters, since the main TCG expansions mostly, if not always, use the games as their little Pinterest mood board, so they're just not as relevant. Before we get into the thick of it, just a warning that since we're going to be talking about the in-game lore, if you plan to play these games yourselves, just be aware that I will be talking about plot spoilers for them. I'll give you a second to choose. We're going to be starting strong with my favourite of the 4, so forgive me if I treat him like a 2013 One Direction member. N's full name is Natural Harmonia Gropius, a name he probably didn't choose, so don't hate him for it. To TLDR N's story, N debuted in Pokémon Black and White in Unova, as a curious trainer you would meet throughout the game who dropped philosophy on humans and their relationships with Pokémon. N's more than qualified to do this though, as he's someone who can hear their voices. Literal or spiritual, we don't really know. But he can, due to being raised by Pokémon as an orphan in the wilderness. Halfway through the game, it's revealed that he's the figurehead of the villainous Team Plasma, extremists who aim to liberate Pokémon from people. This is all a complete lie though, as Getsis, N's adopted father, had manipulated him from a young age to act as their king, where he would ensure nobody in Unova would have Pokémon to oppose him. But this ain't about him, as N makes one of the first decisions he'd ever make for himself and flees Team Plasma's castle after being defeated by you, where he flies into the sky atop either Reshiram or Zekrom, depending on what millennial interior design choices you like. In the sequels, N returns to reason with his father after bringing an Ice Age to Unova. After the new you defeats him, you meet N a couple more times where he reminisces on what happened in the past, returning his dragon to their stone form and giving them to you to revive. N has used and released a lot of Pokémon in-game, since he tends to always use Pokémon found nearby where you battle him. In your first meeting, after a Team Plasma rally in Accumula Town, he uses a Purloin. After revealing his true role as the king of Team Plasma, he uses Sigilif and Darumaka. After using Joltik and Clink in a battle in Chargestone Cave, Clink would possibly go on to evolve into Klinklang for the final fight with you, possibly showing how N starts to keep Pokémon because of your influence, even though his commitment to Getsis is unshaken. N's Reshiram plays a key role in the story of the games, where they act as a symbol of Getsis' manipulation towards N, but also his own liberation. Finally, N's Zoroark was one of the few consistents for him throughout all his life, alongside a Darmanitan who also helped raise N. Moving on to Lillie, she's another fairly tragic character who's been through a lot. She debuted in Pokémon Sun and Moon, set in Alola. To attempt to TLDR Lillie's lore, you meet her as the assistant of the game's Pokémon professor, Kukui. She's quiet, but helpful. But what does she need that big bag for? Well, Lillie has a friend, Nebby. Nebby is a Pokémon called Cosmog, and you later learn that Lillie escaped from her home to protect it. We're putting a pin in that. Throughout the main story, Lillie begins to open up. She can be playful, she can be inquisitive, and she learns to trust you, as she tells you that she came from the Aether Foundation, a man-made island in Alola that acts as a nature conservation facility, led by Lusamine. Keep that pin in. After the evil Team Skull kidnaps Lillie, they whisk her back to the Aether Foundation, where she confronts Lusamine, her mother. You can take the pin out now, don't need to do all that. Here, the player learns that Nebby was being held captive as a research experiment by Lusamine because she wanted to open up wormholes that seemed to summon twisted horrors called Ultra Beasts, Nebby being one of them. But this isn't about her, as she berates Lillie and her brother Gladion for running away, calling them every name under the sun just like any toxic parent would. Nebby is tortured and evolves into Cosmoem as swarms of Ultra Beasts take over Alola, one of which, Nihilego, brings Lusamine and this guy through to the other side, leaving Lillie to figure out what to do next. Lillie completely reimagines herself. deciding that even though her mother might not deserve forgiveness, she doesn't deserve to be lost. You and your friends evolve Cosmo once more into Solgaleo or Lunala, depends if you're a Digimon Dawn or Dusk kind of gal, and this is where it gets interesting. In the original Sun and Moon game, Solgaleo and Lunala open a wormhole that takes you to confront Lusamine, where Lillie lays down all of her bad parenting decisions. Fun! In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Lusamine and this guy are spat out of a wormhole by Necrozma, where Lusamine begs Lillie to run away. She does not. Nebby gets absorbed by Necrozma, and you have to save all of Alola from all of that. Back to the original Sun and Moon, Lusamine lets herself get possessed by Nihilego, and you have to free her. Forcefully. After coming home, Lillie and 8th Foundation are left to heal a poisoned Lusamine. However, ultimately, this leaves Lillie with her own freedom, supported by you, her found family, and her brother. She leaves Alola to find Bill in Kanto, who may know something or other about combining with Pokemon so that she can heal her mother. Her cards and journeys together reflect her Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon Pokemon. Quite literally, these are just the only 3 Pokemon she gets throughout the game. Her Clefairy actually mirrors her mother's Clefable. Moving on to someone who knows all too well about family pressure, Hop is the rival character from Pokemon Sword and Shield, and younger brother to the Galar region's champion, Leon. To TLDR Hop's story, you meet Hop as you both set out to reach the Pokemon League. That's pretty standard. Along with his Wooloo, he chooses a new Pokemon alongside you, where you both battle, and it's just the first of many losses he faces against you. You see, when you meet Hop, he's very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and as Leon's biggest fan, he wants nothing more than to be just as good as his big brother one day. However, after losing to another rival, he starts to actively doubt whether he'll ever actually be good enough to beat Leon. Throughout your journey, you both learn alongside the professor's granddaughter, Sonia, about the truth behind the legends of the region. Come on, time to grab your pen. Chairman Rose, the head of the Pokemon League, brings forth the Darkest Day during the Championship Cup at the end of the game, in hopes to prevent a future energy crisis. Yeah, because that makes sense, but let's be real, we're talking about an out-of-touch man in power. Here, Hop uses what he's learnt with you and Sonia and remembers that the wolves that rest in the slumbering weald might be the answer to preventing Rose's plan. Which works, as you both recover the rusted sword and shield and bring them to the final fight with Eternatus, the harbinger of the Darkest Day. Wielding both sword and shield, this revives Zacian and Zamazenta, ancient protectors of Galar. After thwarting Rose's plan, Zacian or Zamazenta, depends what flavour of slushy you don't like, joins Hop's team permanently as he finds a new purpose in life after realising that sometimes dreams change, finding a love for Pokemon research alongside Sonia and Professor Magnolia, becoming Sonia's assistant. Throughout the main story of Sword and Shield, Hop's team changes drastically based on his character arc. He changes teams completely when he's at his most desperate to win. This is how he gets Silicobra and Cramorant. However, his cards are more dedicated to his more consistent Pokemon, like his Wooloo and Dubwool, Corviknight, Snorlax, and while not in Journeys together, it's possible we could be seeing his Pincurchin at some point too. Hop's Zacian represents not only his victory during the climax of the story, but his new resolve with his new dream. Now, compared to the other 3, Iono is a gym leader. Iono is a very popular one, but she is just a gym leader like any other one you'd find in the games. Their purpose isn't to have really a backstory, which is fine. Sometimes the team just has a really interesting character design, and lo and behold, she's one of the most popular characters from Scarlet and Violet. So while I can't necessarily TLDR Iono's story, here's everything we know. Iono is the electric type specialist who works as the gym leader in Paldea's Levincia, a city that's very fashion and trend forward, with massive LED screens everywhere and a slew of high street brands. This is probably just a side gig to Iono though, as she's actually a streamer who runs the Iono show, where she focuses on engaging content and collaborates with her fellow gym leaders in order to rake in more views. Although, if they prove to be more popular than her, she has been known to falter in self-esteem. Another gym leader, Grusha, says she used to not focus on the views so much, but she's noticed that her views actually spike when she loses. While this confuses her, she values the clout more than winning. Which, well, is it the lesser of two evils? I don't really know. Iono's cards are all Pokemon that she uses in-game, including her signature Bellibolt, which is perfect. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Giant Squishmallow Dream. So yeah, that's everything you really need to know about these 4 trainers and why they're important in representing the generations that they do. In the meantime, let's look forward to playing some games with the cards from Journeys together. I actually pulled 2 of Iono's Belly Bolty X in my pre-release packs, so I'll be trying them out with Raging Bolty X at some point. What about you? As for the stories I talked about in this video, if you want to learn more about Pokemon lore, I recommend checking some of my other videos out where I look at real-life inspirations that influence some of those stories and take a crack at making them feel just a little bit more legendary. Let me know in the comments if you like what you see. Subscribe to see if I get to a topic you want, and maybe, just maybe, we can see each other again. In the original Sun and Moon, Solgaleo and Lunala open a wormhole that wormhole.